Shalom. Here we are with a special lesson in honor of Tu Bishvat, the 15th of the month of Shvat. In the Hebrew calendar, we have several different holidays and different levels of holidays, I would say. The Torah commands the Jewish calendar, as appeared in the Torah, we have three, what is called the regalim. These are the holidays where a person is obliged to go and celebrate in the Holy Temple. That is Passover, Pesach, Shavuot, Pentecost, and Sukkot, Tabernacles. We have the high holidays. There's our Rosh Hashanah, the New Year's Day, and Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. Later on in history, we have two more holidays which were introduced. One appears still in the Tanakh, that is Purim, and one is a little later in the period of the Second Temple, and that is Chanukah. This is the basic Jewish calendar. But there are two more days which were, throughout history, added to the Jewish calendar. They would say they're popular holidays. They are holidays that, though they are on some kind of halachic base, they are popular holidays. And I'm referring to Tu Bishvat and Tu Be'av, the 15th day of Shvat and the 15th day of Av. These two holidays are very interesting. They're very popular, but the essence of these holidays were given by the people themselves. The people of Israel adopted these holidays on their own. They don't appear as holidays in any of the written Torah, of course not, or in the oral Torah. They are mentioned as days with some kind of importance, but they're not mentioned as holidays. But today, people celebrate these holidays. There are two more holidays in the Jewish calendar, and that is Day of Independence and Jerusalem Day. These are two holidays that I would say grew up in the midst of the modern reestablishment of the State of Israel and the people coming back home to Israel. But I want to go back and elaborate a little bit on Tu Bishvat and Tu Be'av. Both of these are Tu, which is the pronunciation in Hebrew of the word Tetvav, which is the 15th day of the month. Tu Bishvat and Tu Be'av. Tu Bishvat, we celebrate a celebration of the fruits of the trees. Tu Be'av, we celebrate the fact that till this day we can bring wood to the temple, and from this day we can't. What is the essence of these 2 days? In the Hebrew calendar, the months are divided into seasons of the year. We have Nisan, Iyar, and Sivan, which is the spring, and then we have Tammuz, Av, and Elul, which is summer. We have Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, which is fall, autumn, and we have Tevet, Shvat, and Adar, which is winter. If we pay attention, we see that Tu Bishvat is the middle of the winter. Tu Be'av is the middle of the summer. And what does this mean? Actually, in referring to the wood of the temple, which is Tu Be'av, this is the day where the wood till this day you can bring wood to the temple. Why is that? Because the summer is going to start getting weaker from this day on, and we are going to have less worms in the wood. Therefore, we're going to have more worms in the wood. And every single log of wood that's brought to the temple is inspected. It's inspected for worms because you're not allowed to have wood with worms. Interesting, Tu Bishvat, which is exactly 6 months later, we're celebrating, once again, for the trees. We're celebrating for the trees, but not for the trees themselves. We're actually celebrating for the fruits of the trees. Why are we celebrating for the fruits of the trees in the middle of the winter, where most of the trees don't have any fruits on them? But actually, according to the Jewish halacha, this is the time where the fruits are going to begin their pregnancy, their development inside. So that towards the spring, summer, even beginning of winter, we will have fruits. And what is the essence of these two concepts? The essence is that man was created to have a dialogue between him and the natural world. We know from the very beginning, after God created light and dark, and God created heaven and earth, and now from the very beginning of the earth, God created on the Tuesday, on the third day, he created the plants, the trees. And our scholars teach us that there was something like a sin of the land. God had commanded, as we read in chapter 1 of Genesis, Vayomer Elohim, God commanded and said, Tacheh haaretz deshe, esev mazriya zera, the land should sprout grass and seed producing. And then the word is fruit tree bearing fruit. But what happened? Vatotzeh haaretz, and the earth brought forth grass, as it was appointed, stalk producing seed, that's what it was appointed, and trees bearing fruit. Not fruit tree bearing fruit, but trees bearing fruit. There was like sort of something that we missed out on. The trees themselves were supposed to have the taste of the fruit themselves. And here, the land produced trees. The fruits have some kind of a flavor, sweetness, but the tree himself does not. Later on, when God puts man into Garden of Eden, the first thing he does, he plants trees. And there are various different kinds of trees. They're all beautiful trees. They all look so beautifully. These look so beautiful. And they're even tempting. And there are those trees that a man can eat from. And there's a tree that a man cannot eat from. And there's a tree of life. There's a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Man, as obliged in the Torah, has to have a dialogue with nature. Man cannot live his life closed in a library. Man cannot live his life totally disconnected from the land. Originally, man was supposed to be placed in Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden, and what was he supposed to be doing there? The Torah teaches us in chapter 2, Le'ovda u'leshomra. The book of Genesis tells us man's job was to preserve and to develop. And that's our job. When God gives the land of Israel to the people, in the book of Deuteronomy, God tells the people, what is the praise? What is there to praise the land? What praise of the land is its fruit. I'm reading the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 8. Eretz chita u'seora, vegefen u'te'ina ve'rimon, Eretz zeit shemen udvash. The land is such a great land. It is blessed. It is blessed with so many kinds of fruits. It is blessed. I'm reading in chapter 8, verse 8. A land of wheat, barley, grapevine, fig and pomegranate, a land of olive oil and honey, which is dates. We also see when the spies in the book of Numbers, chapter 13, were sent to explore and investigate the land, they come back and they show the land is blessed with grapes, with figs. They bring back pomegranates. So the land of Israel is blessed not only by spirituality. Yes, there is something special in the air of the land of Israel. But when God tells you what is the beauty of the land, it's these trees. Because when a man eats a fruit, he can praise and understand that the fruit coming out from in the land was blessed by God. But man's obligation in this world is not only to receive presents from God, but our obligation is to preserve the world, preserve nature, and help it develop. Here we are in the middle of the winter, when all the trees seem like they're naked. No, but man has to understand that now things are producing. And from this time and on, from Tu Bishvat and on, we already see the flowers on the trees. Then we see the leaves. Then we see the fruits themselves. And our dream is that the tree itself should have a flavor of fruit. When a person looks at the tree, he should recognize it. Back to where the Tu B'Av, back to the wood of the temple. Because the tabernacle itself was also created mainly of trees. The ark and the table are made of acacia wood. The beams of the tabernacle, as described in the book of Exodus, are made also of acacia wood. So that when we are bringing something for God, we're also using the trees. But they're devoted to the name of God. Our obligation in this world is to preserve the world, to recognize the fact that everything we have coming out of nature is a blessing from God. We are to preserve that. We are to help it develop. And what cannot be used to eat, the trees, the wood, to bring to serve God in the temple. So here we have the cycle. Planting, developing, preserving, and using for the sake of God. Even the fruits themselves, the very first fruits, we're obligated to bring to the temple, to eat there in holiness, to recognize that God gave us the land. Once again, we have that cycle. Even when we're in the midst of the summer, we remember that the wood is for God. When we're in the midst of the winter, we remember that the fruits are for the sake of God. Our whole life here is to look and recognize the fact that nature is a present we receive from God. We are not allowed to destroy it. Even when going on to war, in the book of Deuteronomy, we have an obligation. You're not allowed to cut down trees of fruits. We're not allowed to destroy nature. We're not allowed to use things in vain. God gave us a present. We're supposed to use this present, not exploit it. We're supposed to use this present and not say, no, we don't, everything is garbage. We're only here for spirituality. No. From the very first moment of the creation of the world, God wanted us to use nature and to get the most out of it. But to try to do that for the sake of God, not for the sake of violence or destruction, but for the sake of building and creation. Not for our own sake, but to enjoy it and preserve it and develop it for the sake of God. And this is what we are celebrating on Tu B'Shvat. Yes, God, thank you. Thank you for the fruit, for the sweetness of the date. Thank you for the depth of the flavor of oil, of olive oil. Thank you, God, for the shade of the fig trees, etc., etc. And there are those who sit on the evening of Tu B'Shvat and every single fruit gets a specific attention and a specific blessing. But even if you don't do that, the very fact that we are supposed to learn, to evaluate, and to express our deep thanks to God for everything He gave us, beginning with nature. And this is the day, Tu B'Shvat, the 15th day of Shvat, in the middle of the winter, when the trees are without leaves, but they're beginning like a baby being born. We are welcoming them to the world. We promise them we will not destroy. We will not waste the presence of God. We will thank God for what He has given us. And we will preserve what can be preserved. We will develop what can be developed. And we will use, for the sake of God, all these presents that He's given us. Thank you, Hashem. Shalom.